All right, we're here today with Leeno D, and I'm very excited about this chat. Thank you so much for joining us on the Bass Bass channel.
Pleasure.
So tell me, when did you first pick up the bass?
Starting when I was 12, guitar for a little while for my 12th birthday that my dad bought me, but didn't really take to it. I was aware of bass because a buddy of mine who was 5 years older than me, John Jerkovic, who I'm still friends with, introduced me to a band called The Sweet when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And there was a song they played called Rock and Roll Disgrace, and it had this amazing sound at the front of it. And I said to him, "What is that?" He said, "Oh, that's bass." The difference between bass and guitar, and I just loved the sound of it. But then it took me, I guess, maybe until I was about 15 or 16 to actually get a bass in my hands, when I went over to another mate's house and he had a bass leaning in the corner of his room, and I asked him, what is that? It's too big to be a guitar, bigger than a guitar. And he said, "It's a bass. I bought it because I wanted to play bass, but I'm going to get rid of it." So I said, "You mind if I borrow it?" He said, "No, take it away." So I'll just keep it for a couple of days. I kept it for a full year, and only giving it back when I finally bought my own one a year later, which was a Korean-made Amina EB3 copy. And that was what I used for the next few years till I got a real bass, like a proper, yeah. So 15, I guess, is when I really started.
What was the real bass?
It was an Ibanez Blazer, which for me at the time was a real bass because Ibanez was all made in Japan back then, and they were sort of getting pretty well known. You know, they'd been famous for copies, and there was, like, Steve Harris was showing up using an Ibanez Blazer in some photos and stuff. So you thought, okay, when the opportunity came up to buy one from someone, I bought it. You know, that served me until I got my first BC Rich.
Yeah, nice. So, and then from starting out playing, can you remember when you first decided that you wanted to join or form a band? Oh
yeah, that was the same time when I was about 9 or whatever, when my mate John played me The Sweet, because I'd been aware, I'd grown up with Beatles, Tom Jones, the Stones, all that stuff, because my parents had all that stuff on quarter-inch tape. My dad used to play a lot of reel-to-reel tapes, and he had a lot of records. But it wasn't until John said to me, "You've got to hear this record I bought," and he played it for me, and it was Wigwam Bam by The Sweet, and it had just come out, and I'd never heard anything like that in my life. I mean, I reckon in that moment my life changed at that age, because then he said, "If you like the record, wait till you see what they look like." And he came out with a British magazine called It's Here and Now, and there was this 2-page photo of them, and there's these 4 guys in 1972 covered in makeup, lipstick, glitter, the whole bit, you know. I was like, blew my 8, 9-year-old mind or whatever I was, you know. I was just looking at it going, wow, like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be, you know. So overnight, pictures of racing cars, dragsters came down off the wall. Pictures of men in makeup with long hair went up. So I don't know what my parents thought, but luckily they weren't against it. They let me go, so just let him do it, you know. So that's when I thought, I want to be in a band. No matter what happens, I have to be in a band. So whatever I do, whether it's singing, playing guitar, you know, I didn't know what a bass was yet, so guitar or singing. Never thought drums, because I love drums, but I never wanted to be back there. I always wanted to kind of be showing off, so.
And and obviously you've been in a bunch of exceptional bands. Can you give me the rundown?
Well, I guess there's a lot of little bands, you know, you start out and you kind of learn the ropes, play gigs and whatever you can do. My first real break came when Candy Harlots, I'd seen them. I actually remember seeing them at a gig in, I think, 87 when they started. They were sandwiched between a couple of metal bands, like, for the time, metal, not metal now. And what I remember is that everybody in the room hated them. All my friends were coming over saying, "These guys suck, how did they get on the bill?" And they were really rough around the edges, but what I liked about them was they were really rough around the edges, because at that stage, everybody was being very precise soloists were very careful and everything was measured and it was tight and it was polished and well rehearsed. These guys were like chaos. They looked absolutely amazing, but they sounded chaotic. And there was something about that that really appealed to me. I thought, I like this. They're colouring outside the lines where everybody else was really inside the lines, you know. And everyone was telling me they sucked, and I was thinking, oh, I really like it, you know. You're mad. Yeah, okay. So then I saw them a couple more times after that, and I had to admit at times, they were really shonky tonight, but there's something about them that works. So when I found out they were looking for a bass player, I thought, I had my own band, but I thought, this is the band I was made for, you know. So I was pretty shocked when I found out they were opening for Cheap Trick at the Tivoli, and I had tickets to Cheap Trick, and I thought they must just be, you know, doing it with their old bass player till they find a new one. And I was pretty shocked when I got there and found they already had a new bass player, and I just thought, I missed out, you know. Surprised again when 2 weeks later there was an ad in the street press saying Candy Harlots still need a bass player, and I thought, Jesus, okay, I've got to go for this. And I got an audition, and I was the second last guy to go in and got the gig. So after that, that was mid-88. So that was my first real break, and that was pretty cool. I did that for as long as it lasted, and then the next thing of note was Jerk, which was something that Charles Cillier got me into. He contacted me and said, look, I've just joined this band. You have to be a part of this. You've got to be a part of this.
Just for reference, we're in Charles's place here. So this is Charles's sort of
Charles's
setup.
Showroom, Cillier Custom Guitars, yeah. He and I are still massively tight. So he's only charging me $100 for this today, which is great. You know. So yeah, he got me into that, and I went down and had a blow with them, and it really worked. And then there was Melody Black after that, which was cool, or there was Ink, and then Department of Gloom, the current thing.
Was the Harlots the only time you've ever had to properly audition for something?
No, Jerk was as well.
Okay.
Jerk apparently auditioned a whole lot of people and just couldn't find anyone, which is why Charles said to them, look, I know of this guy, and he would be great for this, but I've just got to track him down. Because it was at a period where I'd been putting a band together. It was 2000, but I wasn't happy with what I was doing, and I'd wanted to put something really heavy and industrial together, but I could not find people that could do it. I couldn't find anybody. And here was a band that was absolutely tailor-made for what I'd been looking for. And it was just missing me. So it turned out great, you know.
We'll go back to Candy Harlots days. So my first experience of the Candy Harlots was at the Kardoma, and that was probably just before it changed its name to the Tom Tom. And I think that might have been with both Marks, Easton and DeHugo were probably in it back then.
Right, okay. Oh, well, that would have been 89, 90.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But the lineup changed a bit between then and Five Wicked Ways.
Yeah.
Tell me about those days.
About those early days?
All of it, Candy Harlots days.
Well, it was pretty crazy times. It was great because, as I said, I'd seen the band and had really liked what they were about. But I have to admit, they had a bass player, Nick, who was a brilliant player, really great player, a real slappy player, you know, very finger style. I think he played an Ibanez, a wood grain Ibanez, and he always seemed to me like he didn't quite fit what the other guys were about, but he was a fantastic player. So I wasn't surprised when he left, because I thought maybe this is not really his thing, you know. And I took to it like a duck to water. I joined up, and I remember that their manager sent me out a 3-song cassette with a thing that said, come dressed as you would for a gig, because they really wanted to make sure this time they got somebody that really got it. And I remember that I went straight from work, and the way I dressed during the day was the way I dressed. No, there was no difference really, you know, ingrained eyeliner from when I was like 17 or 18. And I turned up, and the first thing they did was start fawning over the clothing, going, where'd you get the boots? Where'd you get the belt? Yeah, what a great bass. Oh, what an awesome amp. Where'd you get the amp? So I thought, oh, this is off to a good start. You know, then we jammed, and it was great. And there was one guy waiting to come in, and their tour manager kept knocking on the door going, mate, you're over time. This guy's been out here for half an hour. You know, and I said, oh, maybe we should stop. And they go, oh, let's just run through one more song, you know. So I thought, okay, this is going to work. And a week later, it was second audition because Ron, the guitarist, who's not with us now, sadly, had been overseas and he'd missed the first audition. So there was a second audition for him to see it. And he later said to me, once we jammed with him, with Leeno, why were we even bothering to have a second audition? He's the guy. So it made me feel great, you know, it made me feel really good. But then a week after that, it was a phone call from Mark Easton saying, the singer, next Friday when we jam, be ready to go out because we want to take you out and introduce you to people. And they took me to the Kardoma, and I'd gone to the Kardoma many times to see bands, Concrete Blonde and whoever was playing, and I'd always had to queue up down there and buy tickets and then get in and wait and When I went with them, it was a completely new world. There was a queue stretching, I can't remember who was playing, but there's a queue stretching all the way down the street. And I said, oh, it's always like this. And they said, oh, don't be silly. They just walked me right up to the box office, bold as balls, right up to the front. Kirsty at the box office. Kirsty, this is Leeno, he's our new bass player. She leans over, kisses me and hugs me and goes, welcome. I thought, Jesus. And we just walked straight in. And the bouncers, these big guys, Ivan and another guy, I can't remember his name, they're both looking up at these, and they're going, hey, welcome, mate. You know, yeah, you're all right. Anytime you want to come in, you know. Go to the bar. No, your money's no good here, mate. What do you want?
Wow.
It was like this instant treatment. And I was like, Jesus, this is great. You know, wow. Hadn't even played a gig yet. I've had like 2 rehearsals. Yeah. So it was pretty exciting. And then their tour manager coming up to me and saying, Brett saying, have you got a girlfriend? And I go, no, not at the moment. And he goes, oh, that's probably good. And I said, why? You know, I started wondering, yeah, why? You know, and he said, oh, you won't have a problem. And I was like, I wasn't that confident at the time, you know, like I was kind of a bit, you know.
Yeah.
And then I realised their audience was like, you know, 70% girls. It was amazing. It was a whole new world for me. It was just amazing. The band got better and better the more we rehearsed, and I started to get asked if I wrote songs, and I said, yeah, I kind of write a bit, bring some songs in, you know, and then, can you sing? Yeah, I can sing a bit. And next thing I know, I'm singing backups on everything. So it was good. It was really nice. They were great.
And you brought them Danger, right?
Danger was Mark, who's a brilliant songwriter. Mark and Ron were absolutely great songwriters, and they'd say to me, anything you got, bring it in. You know, and Mark was the star of the show. He and Ron were the heart and soul of that band, you know. And I brought a demo that I demoed on a 4-track Tascam in, and I said, I've got this. I wrote this a few years ago, before I was in the band. What do you think? And Mark just absolutely loved it, and he's like, this has to be our next single, you know, after Red Hot Rocket. So we recorded that, and it went to number 2 in the indie charts, which is great. And then they completely blew my mind when I'd go in and they'd say, have you got anything new? And I'd go, oh, I've got this song called She Shines, but it's a bit pop, you know? And they go, oh, Mark's like, I love pop, let's hear it. And I sang it and we played it, and Mark learned it, and I had to write out the lyrics. They loved it. Our drummer wasn't too sure about it, but the rest of the band loved it. We went through and did it, and then Mark would say, can you sing it again? Because I'm not getting it the way you get it. So I'd sing it to him again. And then finally he just goes, I got it. You have to sing this. Yeah, right. And I was like, no way. I'm not a singer. I'm not doing it. No. And we went back and forth over it. And Ron, what do you think? And Ron says, it sounded good when you did it. You should just do it. And I'm thinking, it's Mark Easton. He's the star of the show. He's the David Lee Roth of, you know, he's the David Lee Roth, Iggy Pop, Gary Glitter of, in the good sense of Gary Glitter, of this band. You know, he's the front and center. I can't be singing a song. And this is the thing, you think he'd have an ego, but he says to me, no, this is where you're going to go center stage, and you're going to sing at my mic, and you're going to be in a spotlight, and people are going to be looking at you, and it's going to be great. And I'm like, fucking, I can't do this, you know. So I got bullied into it, really did. But it worked. It ended up going really well, and it's just a testament to, at the end of the day, it's not about the individual, it's about the band. And he was thinking, this is going to make the show better. He wasn't thinking, you know, I have to sing everything because I'm the star. And it was really like that. It really did become like that. That was the first band I'd been in where we actually did feel like a gang, like it was a fist, and we were looking out for each other, and we were running together and going out all the time together. If we did a gig, we would all meet at Tony's, who lived in Potts Point. We would gather there, we'd get made up there, we'd be fighting over the hairspray and the crimpers, you know, we'd have 2 crimpers going and makeup and shit everywhere. And we'd get together and we'd, like a posse, we'd walk up together and enter together. And we always did that. And even on the road, you know, whole band would show up together, really felt like you were a part of something, you know? And it was really, really cool. The first dark spot we hit was when Ron died, you know? So, but beyond that, it was a great first real band to be in, you know?
Yeah. And obviously, yeah, things changed again when Mark left. And
yeah, well, the first real change was with Ron, because he was impossible to replace. And we got a guy in that was supposed to just fill in for a couple of shows, some benefit shows, but I just ended up staying. You know, I guess he did his best, but the big shoes to fill. And then Mark de Hugar was a pretty sad thing that happened with him. He had to go. We tried, but it just wasn't working. So when that happened, I knew exactly who to go to. That's brought Phil along. I got him in because he'd been a friend for years and I knew how good he was. When he came in, we got a whole new stability, you know, like the band just actually tightened up even more. And then, of course, Mark had decided that he just didn't, if he didn't take himself out of Sydney and out of the music biz, he might have died, because he was really burning flamethrowers on the candle, you know, like not just burning it at both ends, but so it changed a lot. But it became a completely different band.
yeah, it kind of became your band, right?
It's not by design, just by Ron had gone, Mark had gone, and they were the real heart of that band. And then de Hugar was gone, and he'd been an original member. The only original member left was Tony, and Tony was great, but he wasn't a get up and go guy. He really was a great drummer for what we did, and he was a beautiful human being. I loved him, but somebody had to kind of step up. And Mark had said to me, "Look, if you want to run with this, you've put a few years into it. If you want to use the songs, if you want to keep the name, you have my blessing." I didn't know that I wanted to do that. But then I kind of thought, you know what? I have put everything I have into this too. So let's see if we can bring it back to life, you know, do a phoenix. So we went through a really funny period, though, if you want me to go into it. We went through a period where we'd gone from being the kings of the scene, you know, like packing out the Kardoma 2 nights in a row, making a ton of money for our booking agency and all of that, to once Mark was gone, everybody's signing off on us thinking, well, Mark's gone, they're finished. And we couldn't get arrested. Nobody wanted to know. Calls weren't getting answered. Our management sort of lost interest as well, because I don't think they really thought there was a band there without Mark. And I understand it. But we couldn't even find anyone who wanted to sing for us. We were literally asking people, do you want to come down for a blow? And they were making excuses going, haven't you guys broken up? You know, isn't it over? I was like thinking, we went through 4 or 5 months of, you know, soul searching. Like, how long are we going to keep trying to find a singer? You know, you'd have guys saying, I'd really like to, but, you know, my own band's really happening. We've got a lot going on. And I'd say, well, what have you got going on? Oh, you know, we've got a photo shoot and we've got an opening slot, opening third on the bill for a band at the... I said, okay, well, good luck with it, you know. Yeah. Until finally, Ace was singing with another band and he had quit that band. He was available, and I'd known him for years as well, and I knew he could sing. And we approached him and just said, hey, do you want to come down for a blow? And he jumped at it. And the day that he walked in, he fit like a hand in a glove. It was just perfect. It was completely different, but it was just perfect. So at that point, I made a pretty strong decision and said to the guys, we need to drop all that stuff, the silly string and the blow-up dolls and the gimmicks, which had been a lot of fun. But we need to now just be a real balls out rock and roll band and try and call back on that a bit, knock back the makeup a bit, knock back the, you know, try and really, because we can't be what we used to be without Mark, because he was the master of it. And it worked for us. So the only reason it became my band, if it was because I was booking the shows, booking the demos, bringing in the recordings, bringing in new songs, booking the photo shoots, styling it, saying, okay, we all need to have a unified look now, because before we looked like the Village People at one point. It got that bad that we were all like, you know. So I was kind of doing that. I believed in it and I wanted it to work. If it ain't broke, it was working, so, you know.
That's kind of the lineup that I'm more familiar with, just because of when I was out and about seeing bands and stuff. And I know I shared this story with you before off camera, but there was a time when you came and played at D-Joint at Liverpool, and I was doing sound there, and I was so excited that I was going to get to mix you guys. And then you came along, and Phil, I've spoken to Phil as well separately, and he said he used to run 4 quad boxes then. And you were so loud that I could basically, I ran like the kick drum and vocals through the PA, and that was about it.
But that was the days. Well, Phil was running, he used to run 2, then he went to 4, and I went to 2 SVT boxes. I had one with an 8x10 and one was a 215 Ampeg fridges laid on their side with, like, you know, the heads, the SVT. It was just normal, and we had crew. And we had trucks and we had people to do it all for us, so why not, you know? But yeah, it was ridiculous. It looked good.
How can you still hear?
That's why I have to go, huh?
Yeah.
Eh?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was loud. It was loud. It was a tough gig. It was fun, but it was a tough gig to mix.
Impossible to mix.
Yeah, pretty much. So for the Candy Harlots, it was a bit of a revival after you'd brought Phil and A's into the lineup.
Oh, look, obviously the history is that from being down and out with it and down to 4 people with no singer and no one that was interested. And mind you, even when I told people that I was joining the band, people would actually laugh at me and go, "Are you nuts? They're shithouse. You're crazy. The band you're in now is way better. Why would you do that? Why would anyone?" I'm like, "Oh, because I like it. It's crap. They're not going anywhere." All these, which a year later, these people are coming up to me at Selena's when we've sold it out and going, "Man, if you ever need a guitarist, call me," you know.
Yeah.
You know, they just didn't see it.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we've got a manager that's also, Andrew McManus, that's also managing the vinyls, and they're at #1 with Touch Myself. Yeah. So he's got a lot of clout. We've got a record deal with Virgin, like a 6-album deal. We're touring with AC/DC, you know, doing sellout shows on the Thunderstruck, the Razor's Edge tour. I'm flying to LA to mix the album with Jeff Hendrickson. It's life, like, goes from, you know, nothing to everything in, you know, virtually in the blink of an eye. It's amazing. Yeah. I think Ace made a comment back then when he was asked what it felt like, and he said it's like suddenly being strapped to the front of a jumbo jet on takeoff, and it really is. It's like, you know, it was amazing. It was an experience and stuff that you treasure, you know.
Thought, yeah, we'll have them on again. A's and Leeno from the Candy Harlots. How are you?
Well done. Good.
Did an intro.
That was great.
Like I was building you up to be, you know, really good, and then I just dashed you on the rocks. How you going?
Wonderful.
Hi. Got an album out, I see.
Yes.
Little album, and it's called 5 Wicked Ways, and there it is right there. Pretty tough. Pretty tough. You guys as tough as you look, or what?
Actually,
Nobody could ever be as tough as we look.
Are you just teddy bears, really, aren't you?
yeah, we did back in the hotel room, bake scones and...
We've got this big spread coming up in Family Circle.
You really? I've heard about that.
Leeny Bake pasta.
Yeah. In fact, your name is short for Pasqualino. Is that right?
Very big, huge Italian long name,
That is an
Pasqualino. This
excellent name, but he was saying before, ladies and gentlemen, that he shortened it to Leeno because he didn't want to sign autographs. It was too long to sign autographs.
That's right. It's right as cramped.
Anyway, this album's fantastic. It's got 13 tracks on it, and I was asking before how many hit singles on it, and
13.
13.
People don't know yet, that's all.
Seriously, it's a great album. And who do you think it sounds like?
Sounds like the Candy Harlots, right? No, it doesn't sound like... Nah. There's influences, yeah, but it doesn't sound like anything else.
I think it's
Rough as Guts
believe it's
Promotions
us.
presents.
When I was at SAE, we had a view of the top of the Hollywood Hotel.
Oh, when we were videoing.
I watched that.
It's just
I watched
crazy.
you film that.
You were one of those people.
Yeah.
Because there was people leaning out their windows and on their roofs. And
Yeah,
all
we were watching through the window. I'm like, I know who that is. That's the Candy Harlots.
It's just this crazy video shoot.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Look, those were the days when a label would drop $60,000 on a video, you know. With the Danger video was ridiculous. I'd never experienced anything like it. I turn up to... It's a 3-day shoot, and I turn up to the Dome at the Hordern Pavilion, and there's like all this amazing staging and catering for days, like just every type of food. And I'm thinking, what is this, you know? It's all for you guys, for everybody, all the extras and all the models that the front row's made up of all Andrew McManus. I've got the A-team coming. He's got all these dolly birds in the front to make it look good, you know, and just incredible. And I think this is nuts. What's this costing? You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what? At the time, it's just like, to hell with what it costs. Let's enjoy it.
Over the past week, I've been listening to Jerk, and again, I mentioned off camera that I kind of missed Jerk.
You were a latecomer to Jerk.
Yeah, I was, because of that time in my life was, you know, about getting married and kids and all that sort of thing. So, but I've been listening to it, and holy shit, it is so good. I love it.
Jerk has. If I had to pick between Candy Harlots and Jerk, Candy Harlots was important for me. And I treasure it, I really do, and I loved every minute of it, except for the, you know, obviously the tragedies and the way it all ended, which was sad. But and also you lose friends through stuff like that when it goes wrong, which is sad. But I think if I had to pick, I'd say Jerk was the sweeter one for me, because by the time of Jerk, I was pretty much thinking I always want to keep playing, but I'm just finding it so hard to do what I want to do now. You know, I can't find the thing I want to find. And when Jerk happened, it was just, shit, this is the 3 people that I wished I could find to put a band together with. And Mark Opitz, the producer, was our manager. And he said to me, not many people are as lucky as you. And I said, I know, but in what way particularly? And he said, getting a second bite at a major label. As he said, 10 years ago you signed to Virgin, now you're signing to Sony. And I said, Mark, I know. You don't have to tell me, man. I've got to do it all over again, you know, with a type of music that by then I'd been into for years, you know, that I just absolutely adore. I'd become a 9 Inch Nails fan when I first heard Head Like a Hole, you know, on Pretty Hate Machine. And I thought, wow, there's this as well now, you know. Because I'd kind of grown tired of that whole LA hair metal thing pretty quickly. And I started listening to the punkier side of things, then I went back to the punkier side of things because The Damned had been one of my first things on Euros when I was 14, you know. But I discovered all this industrially heavier stuff, and I was just, like, totally sold on it. And Phil in the Harlots was totally sold on it as well. Everybody else, not so much. Some of the guys were getting Black Crows. We were going Ministry, you know. Yeah. So for me, Jerk was like really, really perfect at the time, and still a lot more part of me now than the other band was. Yeah, and I guess for anyone who hasn't heard Jerk, first of all, do yourself a Molly Meldrum. Go do yourself a favour and check it out. I read a review that described Jonathan Devoy, as a vocalist, as an angry Marilyn Manson. There are elements of Manson, but obviously elements of Nine Inch Nails in it, and you had their producer.
John,
when Charles called me and said, it took him a while. In fact, he found me through Phil. He contacted Phil, who then, you know, contacted me and said, this guy, Charles, blah, blah, blah. Charles sold the band to me. He just said two things. He said, firstly, the singer, the front man, I've never seen anything like this guy. He said to me, I was sold when I saw a video of him performing. I think he said he saw a video of him performing at a gig. He said, I've got to be in this band. And he joined. And he said to me, you have to see this guy. He's phenomenal. Secondly, there's a song, they've done a song on the Cut soundtrack, a horror movie soundtrack. Go to it, don't buy it, but just go to a record store and have a listen to it. I said, okay. So I had that in my ears, you know, front man. I had Mark Easton. Could he be? I thought I had the ultimate front man back then, you know. And then I had Ace, who was pretty great. And then I went and had a listen to Surrey Hills. I went and had a listen to the Cut soundtrack, and I heard the song, and I said to the guy, I think you've played the wrong one, because I thought, this sounds like a US band. This can't be an Australian band. And he said, no, that's the right track. And I said, can you play it again? And I heard it, and I thought, holy shit. I went straight back, called and said, yeah, when can I come down? Yeah. It was a song called Jesus Saves, and it was phenomenal. John was brilliant. John was just... the thing I really liked about him was the attitude the band had, that we all had, which was, what is it? Nothing held back. Just if you come off stage and you're not bleeding or you're not limping, then you haven't done it. You haven't done it right, because there was most nights, John and I especially, would come off stage limping, or a broken eye or a split lip, because we just got really lost it. You get lost in it, and it got really violent, you know. Not, you know, we'd come off and we'd be all right, but on there you would just get so caught up in it. Like, he would smash a bottle, be singing and just be cutting himself, and then afterwards go, why did I do that? You know, like, yeah. What the fuck? And I'm like, you know, it was just that kind of band. People would come up and say to me and John, listen, guys, whatever it is, you can sort it out. You know, don't destroy the band. And we're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. We're fine. Yeah. You know, because we'd be ramming each other. And I've got to say, it was fun, you know. Like, I mean, sure, you'd be in pain, but it was good. It was real, you know. It wasn't like, tonight I think we should do this, and I think you should come at me. It was never like that. You know, John picked me up and threw me into the drum kit at a gig. Not because I'd done anything wrong, just because he turned around and I was there. Yeah. And the whole drum kit went over with Lamar under it. The next day I had to go to a chiropractor. And it got to a point where I started going to the chiropractor regularly, and I'd walk in and a guy go, okay, what happened this time? I got thrown into the drum kit again, you know.
And these people are all here to see one band that are playing live today. They're coming straight out of Sydney after their self-titled EP that went nuts last year. This is Jerk. I hate people like that. I'm what you want.
Rock.
Get the reason why you think I should care. It's not my problem. I call you when I want some, but I forget the reason why you think I should care. I hate people like that, get people like that, treat you like that. I hate people like that, get people like that, treat you like that. All that want something, it's like a psycho. I try to talk about it, but no, you wouldn't listen.
Sean Beaven was fantastic. Yeah, we went over. He was supposed to come out and produce it with Lamar here, because Lamar's a phenomenal producer, songwriter, arranger, singer, can play any instrument. I'm sure if you handed him a tuba, he could play it. He was brilliant. Art, graphics, everything, video, you name it. Nothing the guy couldn't do. He's going to co-produce with Sean Beaven because we were all fans of what he'd done with 9 Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson and Slayer, God Hates Us All, you know, which was my go-to album for a while there. So he was supposed to fly out and do it with us, and then he had an ear infection and couldn't fly. So he ended up doing it via email and sending files over and stuff. And then finally we went over to sit in on the mix with him at his studio. So we were there for, I think, 3 weeks. And that was a brilliant experience, you know. That was really, really good. Watching him work, how he worked, watching him pull the sounds, and, you know, John did some vocal tracking over there and blew him away. He was like, wow, this guy's amazing, you know. So that was good fun. And it gave us a chance to, the whole 4 of us, to be in LA at the same time when LA was still, you know, before it went where it is now, it was still pretty cool and there was still a lot happening. So it was good. We got into a bit of fun trouble over there, so it was good.
The sound on that album is just massive. I mean, it's up there with 9 Inch Nails and Slayer, and you can hear that the level of production is just incredible.
Yeah, well, that's Lamar. Mark Opitz had a hand in that as well, because he's brilliant as well, you know. He's awesome. In fact, I think Mark tracked pretty much most of my bass as well at Rhinoceros. So we did that, and then Sean's tips, and then Sean finally, his mixing, you know, was, I mean, we loved it. I still put that album on now and it sounds mean as.
It does, yeah. It's a dream team you've assembled there, like on all fronts, really.
Fantastic. You know, we had Harbour, Premiere, Frontier behind us, so we were getting all these great tours, you know.
So, well, with Jerk and Candy Harlots both signed to major labels, as you mentioned, you seem to be on the cusp of breaking internationally. How close did you get to the international markets?
Candy Harlots, we got as far as the album getting a 4K review in Kerrang, which was good, as an import. And then there was talk of the band going over there always was. But back then the focus was more on the US. In that era, it was pretty much, in fact, when I was over for the mix of the album with Jeff Hendrickson, he's a guy that had done Aerosmith and Van Halen and all that sort of stuff, Vane. I was taken around and I was taken to meet the Virgin people over there, and they were like, you know, we really love your album, blah, 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 blah. We want to look at what we want to do and the next release. And, you know, it was all very much wheels turning. But then there was a thing around the corner that no one noticed. It was clad in plaid shirts and cut-off shorts and goatees, and everything started to go belly up, you know. And then it was, we don't think we're going to put the album out. It's really kind of dated now, and this was only like, you know, 6 months after it came out. So I definitely saw that because label guy took me to the Cat House to see this new band that he was really excited about called Pearl Jam. Never heard of them. And they turned up in a Bedford van and they lugged all their own gear in. No one had heard of them, and they played the Cat House. And I thought they were pretty cool. Not really my kind of thing, but I thought they were kind of earthy. They kind of reminded me of the Doors in a way, you know, that kind of feel. Nice guys. I was Jeff Amen's guest. He didn't even know it. I ended up on his guest list. Really nice guy, I met him. We came back to Australia, had no idea, then it exploded 6 months later. But that was the way the scene was going, you know. So then they were like, you know, let's see what you do on your next album. Our next album, consequently, was a hell of a lot heavier. just because that's the stuff I'd been demoing, you know. Phil and I had been getting into Pantera, Cowboys from Hell, stuff like that, and, you know, Ministry and all of that, and we were just excited about tuning down and playing heavier because we just really were kind of growing into that. So, but then, you know, the label change happened and singer change happened again and went belly up, you know. Yeah. Didn't happen anymore.
And with Jerk, how close?
With Jerk, it was really close. The album was slated to be released in, our manager would come in and say, we've got Spain, we've got France, we've got Switzerland, we've got Germany, we've got Italy. They're all, deals have been done for Sony to release the album and all. Now we're going to get the UK, and we're setting you up next year to go over and do showcase gigs. You'll be in the UK for a month, and you'll do a whole load of showcase gigs. We'll get Metal Hammer and Kerrang involved, sponsorships, and then you'll go and do showcase shows in different parts of Europe. We were all like, great, you know, everybody get their passports ready and la 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 la. Didn't happen. Label got sold, or, you know, got merged. And the new A&R guy came in and said, I think the future of this label is in R&B and pop. You know, I don't think guitar-oriented music's really what's going on anymore. And like, okay, we've got a problem. So all went down the tubes.
It sucks how one bloke's opinion can change so much that you've worked for.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, here's the thing. I guess with Jerk, we never got told what to do. With Candy Harlots, I have to say we were lucky with Virgin. We had Laurie Dunn was the big guy at Virgin, and he was fantastic. I could turn up at Virgin headquarters unannounced and say, if Laurie's available, can I see him? And they'd buzz him and say, hey, Laurie, Leeno's here. He'd be like, oh, set him up. And I'd go up, he'd be on the phone, and he'd go like this, and I'd know what that meant. It meant help yourself to a drink while I finish. He had a huge framed photo of Johnny Rotten over his desk because he'd worked with the Sex Pistols for Virgin in the 70s. And they were like, how, you guys, anything you want to do. Say fuck as much as you want. Swear, piss people off, do whatever you want. We love it. You know, they had a real British punk attitude. So we never got told what to do. With EMI, when we got taken over by EMI for the second album, it was like going to work for the Commonwealth Bank. Right. It sucked. Yeah. It sucked. Nobody got it. They were all very, you know, like, no, you can't do that, and this, you can't have this, and the album's too heavy, and, you know, down the tubes. With Jerk, with Sony, it was a little bit of, you know, be careful about this, and maybe, I've always worn a pentagram. It's just, come up to me at a video shoot and would do this to me and go, maybe we just put that out of sight, right. You know? And I'd go, yeah, okay.
Out it comes, yeah.
And then I'd turn up a week later with, you know,
yeah,
the LeVay symbol. It's a little bit, but that was still pretty good. I was still all right. So in a way, going independent, there's a whole hell of a, don't get me wrong, I'd go back to a major in a heartbeat if it could be like the original ones were, because you just can't beat it, you know. And I can't honestly say I had any, except for EMI, I can't say I had any horror stories with majors. They were great. They gave us money. They often did a lot of things for us that were non-recoupable. A lot of the time they just believed in it and threw money at us that we never had to pay back. They looked after us. They pretty much let us do what we wanted. Nobody ever came into the studio and told us, you can't do this, you can't do that. EMI, as I said, were a bit more conservative, but we were only inherited by them, so we were never really a part of that scene. So I have nothing bad to say about the two major labels we signed with. So, yeah, different world though.
In 2009, you did a reunion show of the Candy Harlots, and in 2013, one with Jerk.
Now, I've got to qualify that.
Yeah.
First of all, the Candy Harlots thing. As soon as my visibility became high again with Jerk, I started getting, because we were with Harbour Premier, and I started getting promoters in my ear saying, any chance you might do a Harlots thing? I said, no. And then it started to become a little more, a promoter would say, hey man, you think you might? And I go, no. And then I'd hear back from someone from the band would say, I spoke to such and such from the Harlots, and he said, we all want to do it, but Leeno won't. I'd be like, okay. And then finally I had to say, look, I'm in a new band, I'm with Sony, I've just gone to LA, I'm touring with Disturbed next week, and then the week after that I'm touring with Insane Clown Posse. Every show's sold out. Why in hell would I go back and do something that I stopped doing 15 years ago, 16 years ago? Why would I do that? The answer was some of those guys weren't doing anything, So I just thought, I just want to keep doing what I do. Fast forward to 2009, and I get a phone call from someone saying, I just wanted you to know that your singer Ace has had a massive heart attack, and he's in a really bad way. He's got a couple of stents, and he was in a coma for a couple of days, and whatever it was now, I can't remember. He's in a bad way. And he said, he was saying the only thing he ever wished he could have done was had one more go at singing those songs. And it got me here. I thought, I haven't spoken to him in 16 or 17 years. But in the end, I loved him. I thought he was great. He had some traits that drove us nuts, and in the end worked against him as much as it worked against us. But he was talented, and I never really had a bad falling out with him like some of the other guys did. I always got on okay with him. So I said, you know what, give me his number. I spoke to him, and he said, oh man, I can't believe you called me, Anyway, I said, all right, look, let me see what I can do. And I contacted the last promoter that had contacted us, and I said, that gig you wanted to do with us, is it still on? And he said, yes, absolutely. I said, okay. So this guy basically put it all together, and we did that one show, and I was adamant it was going to be one show because I was with Inc. and we were promoting our second EP. We were touring at that point. We were playing like Thursday, Friday, Saturday every week. We were in Adelaide, we were in Sydney, we were in the country towns, we were in Brisbane, we were in Gold Coast, and then I started doing that and rehearsing with the Candy Harlots as well. And then we did the Skid Row tour when they came out in 2009, and I was flat out, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But I said I was adamant, one show and that's it. It was sold out. It was huge. It was really good. People flew from everywhere to be at that show. It was great. And then about a month later, an offer came in to do Brisbane, an offer came in to do Adelaide, and an offer came in to do Melbourne, and I just had to keep saying no because I just could not do it. Finally, a Melbourne one came in that I could fit in the night after an Ink show. So I was like literally doing Ink on Friday and then doing Candy Harlots on Saturday in Melbourne. And I said yes because none of the other guys had done an interstate gig in years, and they were really excited about it. I said, okay, we'll do it. So we did that one Melbourne one. And then after that, it's like, okay, lock it, throw away the key, it's done.
Yeah. And Jerk, any chance of a revival of Jerk?
Look, Charles and I have tossed it back and forth a little bit, to be a thing that we love the band, we love the album. It really has to depend on, it has to be a matter of the other two guys have to feel like they want to do it. It can't be a matter of talking anyone into it. You can't do that. If the other guys came and said, hey, you guys keen to do it, I would think about it, Charles would think about it. We're all in very different places now. And as I said, Candy Harlots is like plugging in and rocking out. Jerk was like a wrecking ball. We're all 20 years older, We'd give it a good shot, best of British and all that, but it would have to be more about getting the band sounding as good as it did back then. And if we could do that, then it'd be worth doing. I'd certainly be open to it, because I really love those songs. Lamar and John wrote all that stuff, and they just wrote brilliant songs. So can't see it happening though, really.
So now, just in terms of finding stuff, I was able to find Department of Gloom and Jerk on Apple and Spotify. Can't seem to find Candy Harlots or Melody
It's a question I've been asked a lot, and it's got nothing to do with us. It's whoever Virgin was bought by EMI. I think EMI is now owned possibly by Universal. I'm not sure. It's whoever's in charge of that catalogue obviously is either missing it or just knows about it and doesn't think it's worth putting up, which is silly because it would still be generating income for someone. I don't know. I mean, when we did the Candy Harlots reunion, our manager in Inc., John Martinovich, contacted, if I remember right, I think he contacted EMI at the time to say, look, they're doing this show. It might be a good time to do a reissue. Maybe you've got a whole unreleased album, a $200,000 album that you shelved because they said it was too heavy. That now, maybe you could do like some kind of package. It would be very cheap for you to do. They didn't even get back. They couldn't be bothered at all. They just weren't interested. It's like no one cared. No one cared. So I guess it's like that. It's just someone has to
That's just
give a shit, basically.
There are fans out there who care. I know.
It's out of our hands.
Yeah. All right. When was the last time you felt nervous before a show?
Jeez. I don't want to sound like a tosser, but I don't think I've actually felt nervous in the sense of jittery for a long time. I can't remember when. Even at my very first Candy Harlots gig, which was at Bankstown RSL opening for the Radiators, it was like my trial by fire warm-up, Our manager came up to me and said backstage, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "No, I'm actually really excited." And he said, "Oh God, I'm shaking like a leaf." And I said, "Well, thanks." So I think a little element of confidence and a little element of adrenaline, maybe just can't wait to get at it and do it, So I don't think I've really been nervous before a show. I've been massively excited, I'll tell you what, the first AC/DC, because we did 4 sold-out Tennis Centre shows in Melbourne. I guess maybe it's Rod Laver Arena now. 4 sold-out shows with them. The first time I did that, and the lights went down, and when the lights go down, an audience roars. The first time I heard that, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and it was a feeling that it's nothing like it. And I didn't get that feeling again until we did Marilyn Manson with Jerk. And we were in Brisbane and the lights went down. We were ready to go up on stage. The lights went down and the intro came on and the audience roared, and I felt it just like the first time 20 years earlier. I felt it exactly, or 10 years earlier, whatever. I felt it exactly, It was that excitement. And I thought, man, I felt it again in Sydney at the next show. There's just something about that is unbeatable, just unbeatable. But I still get excited before a gig, not nervous. The only nerves now are, because I'm singing, I hope I can hit the notes. I hope I don't flake out, Yeah. That's the only thing.
Yeah. And you've done some massive support gigs. You mentioned AC/DC, Marilyn Manson, Disturbed, The Cult.
Insane Clown, that was fantastic. Killing Joke was a personal highlight.
Do you have a best ever?
A best ever?
Gig, yeah.
For my own reasons, I guess Marilyn Manson at the Entertainment Centre, because not only was I a big fan, but it was a hometown. It's where I was born, and the Entertainment Centre was somewhere where I went to see everybody, and I always used to dream of playing there. I guess it's like if you're from New York, Madison Square Garden. For me, it was the Ent Cent, and having my brother there and family, friends, people I'd known for years. That was, for my own reasons, that was really exciting. That was probably a highlight. And then the massive hangovers that came after those shows, because you can't open for Marilyn Manson and not indulge, It's fantastic. But I guess that would be a highlight. Killing Joke, because I've been a Killing Joke fan since, the early 80s when I was at art school and I discovered Killing Joke, that whole thing. So, yeah, but there'd been a lot by now, so they were all good. Ace Frehley was good. I did open for Ace Frehley with a band, and that was cool.
Who did you most want to meet that you have met?
I think I've met just about... I met Gene Simmons. I met Gene Simmons in '91 when I was over doing the Candy Harlots album. he was introduced to me at Foundations Forum, and he was just fantastic, you know. As soon as I opened my mouth, he said to me, "You're from Australia?" I was like, "Oh, wow, this guy's good, you know, he's good." And he asked me, you know, he took time to ask me what I was doing there and what I was up to and the band, and then he took, you know, maybe there were people trying to get to him. It probably fully took 5 minutes to dissect what I was about, and I was a bass player, and, you know, and I said, yeah, you know, like Kiss Alive is the album that really cemented, you know, when I looked at that photo of you on Kiss Alive, I said to him, I want to be that guy, you know, I want to be that guy. And he laughed and he said, I hope all your dreams come true, man. I hope it all works out for you. So, and he's the only person I've ever asked for an autograph. I do have Angus Young's autograph, but that's because he just signed it he signed, hey, to Leeno, Angus Young, and gave it to me. It was an Angus Young dollar bill that they dumped on the audience. There was one there, and someone had asked him for an autograph, and then he said, do you want one? And he's signed it for me. It's really cool. So Alice Cooper was a big one when I first met him.
And we're bringing it back local, and back in your early days, you told me a story about when you met our man, Bloxy.
Ah, yeah. Well, I was a Spy fan from when I heard their first heard them anyway, right? I just loved the sound of them. And I'd see them on TV and I'd love the band, you know, and I'd been to see them play live. I'd seen them opening for Hunters and Collectors, who was a band that I loved before they became, you know, before they turned into Triple M, Bruce Springsteen kind of, you know. Before that, they were a really great sort of gothy art rock band. They were great. So Spies opened for them and they blew me away. And when I joined the Harlots in '88, we were at Sound Level Studios and I saw Bloxy down at the other end of the corridor, and I did a double take and I went, that's the guy from Spy. I was still starstruck, you know, back then. I'd never met anybody back then, anyone. I said, that's the guy from... And then Ron came out and he said, Bloxy! You know? And I was like... And he came running up, gave him a great big bear hug, and I went, holy shit, they're friends with those guys, you know? And then he introduced me. He's like, hey man, you know, you're with a great bunch of guys, you know, they might look like arseholes, but they're good guys, you know, they might act like arseholes, but they're really good guys. You know, when I joined that band, I'd come out of bands where we were all very polite to each other. I joined the Harlots and they were like, fuck off, you know, you dickhead, and I was swearing at each other, and I thought, God, what have I got myself into? And I soon realised it was just the way they were. So Bloxy was just so warm. I was like, wow, man, you know. And then next thing I know, we're opening for them. He's organised, he's spoken to the right people, and we're doing shows with them, you know. And I'm looking at his P-bass and going, that's an awesome bass. Have a try of it, you know. Backstage at Sweethearts in Cabramatta. And I said, how old is this thing? And he goes, the same age as me, man. It's 59. It's a 59er, you know. He's still got it. Yeah. So yeah, that was an exciting thing. And the other guy was Steve Balby. I never actually met Steve Balby until years later, but I used to go to every Noiseworks gig because I loved them. I thought they were fantastic. I must have seen them maybe 7 or 8 times. And I'd be on his side watching that guy. He's a finger player. I'd be watching him going, how does he do that? How does he look like he's not doing anything but sounds like he's doing so much? You know, like, it's just amazing, you know? And then I remember looking at his pedal board and the bastard had them all painted black. You couldn't tell what they were. I'm sure that's how I remember it. Looking at his pedal board, going, what's he using? I couldn't tell what they were, you know?
Hiding his secrets.
I got to meet him years later, and he's a lovely guy. Really, really nice guy. Yeah, the other guy was, as with Laurie from Heaven, bass player from Heaven. He was another guy that I used to be a big Heaven fan, and I used to go and see them a lot. I say used to, I still love the band, but back then I used to go and see them a lot in 81, 82 when they were really happening, before they went overseas. And he always had a brilliant sound. He always had this really great Ampeg, drivey sound, which no one had, you know, like he was one of the first guys with that sound. So he was another guy that I got to meet and actually on really good terms with and speak to him every once in a while, which is cool.
Fantastic. And I read somewhere that you got to go to the Playboy Mansion.
It's got nothing to do with playing bass. It's a whole different time of bottom end, whole different type. Yeah, I did in 2001. 2001. Yeah, I got a FedExed invitation to the summer party. Sounds ridiculous. To the summer party, and went to that. And
but it's got to be related to being in the bands and stuff, or no?
No, it was actually through the fashion job that I had at the time. I was in Jerk, and when we signed our deal, I went into work and I said, look, I'm going to have to quit. Because being in a major label band, I'd experienced it with the Harlots. When I joined the Harlots, I had to quit because I was literally, it was like having a day job. I was working every day, you know. With Jerk, it was a little bit less than that because by then the scene was a little different and there wasn't as much print media and not as much radio. But I just thought I'm probably going to have to quit. So I went in and said, look, I'm going to be touring. And they did not want me to leave. So they ended up saying, look, how about you go to a 4-day week and we just pay you the same and any time off that you need, have it. And so I thought, okay, it's made in the shade. And through the work that I did there, because I was dealing a lot with overseas people, with fabric manufacturers and designers and stuff, and I was dealing with Playboy clothing label because we had started the clothing label. We licensed it for Australia. I was dealing with them, and you know, they ended up saying, do you want to come over? We'd really love you to come over to the summer party. All expenses paid. I get on a plane and fly to LA and stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel. You know, there's this Dean Martin and all these people are on the wall, you know, that have stayed here. All of that. Get picked up in this big black darkened window car and get taken to the Playboy mansion, and it was amazing.
Wow.
The hat check girl was a Playboy bunny. The drinks people were Playboy bunnies. Everybody was a Playboy girl. It was incredible. They've got peacocks walking around in the garden, for God's sake. It was incredible. Got my picture taken in the grotto. It's fantastic. It was quite an experience. Yeah.
All right. So Department of Gloom, been going for a few years now. You've had an album release. There's music videos, amazing gigs. Tell us about the formation of Department of Gloom.
We had Melody Black. I put together Melody Black with John and Phil and AJ, this drummer that well, actually no, he came in at the end of Melody Black. Our original drummer was Tubby Wadsworth, who's like Keith Moon. He's an amazing player. Never plays anything the same twice, but you always end up in the right place with him. He's that good, you know. He ended up quitting for his own reasons. That was still like tied as, which is great. And we got AJ in towards the end of the band. And then when that band ended, because I had just got to a point where I think it had run its course and I wasn't feeling good about it. And I decided I wanted to put something different together. So I came up with this whole idea and came up with a name. You know, which still baffles some people, but just wanted something that it's odd, but once you hear it, it's odd enough that you might remember it, you know. So yeah, we started that and we started playing shows and recording and made the album. We had one lineup change where we got James Poole in on drums, which has been a good shot in the arm. And yeah, we're demoing for the second album, and what can I say? It feels good. It's a band where no one's in it because they have to be in it. Everyone does it because they want to do it. They enjoy doing it. We got Phil, obviously, who's long-standing with me. He's like a brother. We've got James, who both of us had actually played with years ago as well. And we've got Biz, who is just, when he walked in and played me some songs he'd written, I thought, where have you been all my life? You know, like he could sing, he could play, he looked great. He totally got the attitude, totally got the idea of what I was thinking. He was completely the guy we were looking for. It was easy, you know, and we still have that rapport after a few years of doing it, you know, so it feels good. So we'll just see. Nothing's forever, but I really hope we can keep it going because it really does feel good, you know.
Yeah. How would you describe the sound for anyone who hasn't listened to it, who should just go and
listen
to it?
I really can't. I mean, it's at times it reminds me of a hybrid of Candy Harlots and Jerk, you know, because we do have some stuff that's tuned down and heavier. We do have a bit more of that angry attack. and we do use tracks for some things, you know, like we did in Jerk. It's just to get it out there. All the vocals are live, all the guitars are live. The only tracks are like some synth pads and some sound effects. That's pretty much it. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard. We've been called. What did we get called? Somebody called us. I can't even remember. Someone described this in a really interesting way, but I can't even remember it now. It's hard. I don't know. What would you describe it as?
I know there's a bit of a punk attitude in there. There's a bit of everything.
There is. Yeah, there is. There is. But I guess between us, we all bring something different to it, you know? So that's what I like about it. We've all got a different quarter that's coming to it, you know? I mean, there's some classic rock stuff coming to it. There's definitely some punk stuff, especially from Biz. Biz is a punk, you know? And from me, there's the stuff I listen to, which is in my veins from years ago. So I guess it all just comes together to form Department of Gloom, you know? Sounds cliched, but yeah.
Oh no. Not again! Why are psychos attracted to me? Is it the way I talk? Is it the makeup that I wear? Or the color in my hair? Psychos, stay away from me. Why are psychos attracted to me?
Here's the thing about the album, right, that I like. When we finished it, I came up with a track listing, Biz came up with a track listing, and we came up with the identical exact same track listing.
That's very cool.
We both heard the album in exactly the same way, which is to say, for us, it's a journey. It's like a 360 that starts and gets to the end and then starts again. That's how it feels to us. And I think there's no two songs on there that sound the same. As much as I love AC/DC, you pretty much know what you're going to get, you know, and that's their strength. With us, I think we were coming more from and not to say that we're anywhere near being able to touch those bands, but coming from somewhere of like, if you listen to a Ghost album or you listen to a Queen album, a Night at the Opera, or again, I'm not putting us up there with that, or even Dark Side of the Moon, where it's something that lulls you in and there's a whole lot of different feelings and sounds and types of music on there. We're scratching the surface of that on this record, and I think on the next record, the demos are really exciting me for where we're going with that. So I think we succeeded with the first one.
Would you care if I left? Or would you rather I died? Well, you can have what you wish. I wish you'd make up your mind. I'm sick of fighting your wars. I'm sick of climbing your walls. You've taken all that I have. You know you're driving me mad. I don't know you. Come on, come on, come on now.
Leeno, let's talk bass.
Let's talk bass. Try and shut me up on this one.
So let's talk about your bass in particular. I always saw you with a Thunderbird, and I really thought that was a permanent attachment, and I was surprised to see the Ricky emerge. Tell me how that happened.
The Thunderbirds happened in 1990 in the Candy Harlots when I walked into Downtown Music, because Thunderbirds were rare as hen's teeth. I walked into Downtown Music and the guy that ran the shop, Carlo, had one hanging on the wall that was brand new. It was a Thunderbird 4 that had just come out. And I went straight over to it and I went, no way. And I took it down and he plugged me in and I played it for about half an hour. And I said, I'm coming back. How many of these have you got? He said, just one. It's the first one in the country. And I said, put it away. I'm coming back in a couple of days. In those days, I've got to make sure I can afford it, you know? It was something like $1,500. He did $1,400 for me, you know? I still remember, because I remember that I went out and I organised $1,400 I said, cash, what will you do me? He said, $1,400. I went in and got it. Then when we signed with Virgin, we got our advance, we each got some money. I found a guy selling one. He'd bought it brand new. He'd bought the second one that had come in about a year later, or whatever it was. And because the guy said to me, he was in Coogee, and he said to me, they told me that this is only the second one. I was like, okay, whatever, I don't care. I bought the second one, so I had a pair, and I used those for, 6 or 7 years. One of them, the headstock fell off, which is they're prone to. And then the second one, the headstock fell off about a year later, and I got it repaired. And the guy that repaired it said, look, this is going to be okay, but not for a guy in the Candy Harlots, because I've seen what you do to your bases. You should get rid of it. I got rid of it. I replaced those with a pair of Gibson Rippers, which were built like brick shit houses. So I played them for a few years. Then I went back to another Thunderbird, a couple more Thunderbirds down the line, until I was rehearsing with Jerk, and the head fell off my new Thunderbird. It just literally has to touch something, and they just go, see ya. And Charles said to me, look, you've always played a Thunderbird. Let me build you one. So we got together and came up with a Thunderbird. And it was the best Thunderbird I've ever had, and I still have it. That's 22 years now. I recorded the entire Jerk album with it, and I've still got it. It's fantastic. But I've moved along a bit with what I do. I got my first Rick. This one, the 4000. It was a 4000 when I got it, and it's 1979. Got it online from a store in New York. Literally just seeing it listed in a shop, and I contacted them, went back and forth with them for a couple of months, thinking, please don't buy it, please don't buy it, please don't someone buy it. And finally they said, you know what, you can have it, we'll do a deal. They brought the price down for me because the exchange rate and everything, and I was like, the exchange rate's really bad and the import duty, and I was crying, And they finally gave in and said, this poor bastard, let's just not make much money on it, let's sell it. And I got it. It came in and it was a dream. So that then led me to buying a 2015 a few years later, and I've been using them ever since. I've had quite a lot of bases. I've got a Warwick Star bass, a Korean long scale, which is beautiful, and I've used that. And I've got this little Edwards, this little Japanese Edwards. It's like a double cutaway Les Paul. And it's the meanest little Gibson sound ever. I used it for a track on the album. But the Fireglow has been pretty much my main bass for probably the last 5 or 6 years. And I've been sort of reluctant to get this one out too much because it's pretty valuable, but I do like using it. I used it at the show that you came to recently, so... Yeah.
And you told me you put new strings on it. So
yeah, well, I was lucky enough to...
Not just new strings, different strings.
Well, no, yeah, I not that long ago, maybe a year ago, I became a Rotosound endorsee through National Music in Queensland, which has been fantastic because Rotos were the first strings I ever knew existed. Who knew brands of strings? Rotos I used to see advertised when I was a kid, and you couldn't find them. So I always wanted them. And then when I could see them in shops, they were out of my league, So I always wanted to try them, and through National Music, I got to try them and loved them. So I've been using them ever since, and they made me an endorsee, which is I'm really proud of. And I started out with 105s because that's what I used to use. In fact, in Jerk, I used to use 110s. We went heavier there. But I've gradually got lighter and lighter. I was using 90s. And now this is the first time I've put hundreds. Sorry, I was using hundreds. These are 95s. I had a chat with Paul Gray from The Damned, who's a Rickenbacker guy, and he was telling me that he's gone to 95s and that they work really well on Ricks. So I thought, why not put them on? And he was right, man. They really twang. They're great.
How about buying new basses? How do you go about buying them? Do you buy them online, through recommendations? Do you have to play it before you buy it?
I've rarely been able to find, except for the early days, because I guess there was before eBay and Gumtree and online buying and Reverb, the shops always had a lot of stuff. Well, for a start, there were shops. There's barely any around anymore, and they had a lot of second-hand gear and imported gear. My Hamer bass that I had a Hamer Blitz bass that I bought off Gumtree, of all places, and the Thunderbirds were in stores. Mockingbirds were both from stores. The BC Rich Bitch that I had was from a store. You know, everything was shops. That's where you bought stuff. But now, if you want to find something specific, you can't walk into a shop and just see a Rickenbacker hanging on a wall. Where do you go? So you've got to kind of take a shot, and they're not cheap. So I've taken a shot on both of these and been fortunate. They're both completely different. They sound different, they feel different, the necks are different, but they're both great, you know? So, and I use them both on the album extensively, pretty much most of it. The only other bass on the album is Fender Bullet that I've got, a pair of Bullets, which I love. Yeah, it's pretty much just seeing stuff online and getting excited and making the decision, am I going to take a punt on this? That's it.
It's tough.
I was lucky with these two.
Yeah, it is definitely tough to take a punt for that sort of money.
You do.
Yeah. Can you take me through your setup now? What are you using? Amps, pedals, that sort of...
Right. Well, my main rig, what I've got here today is what we call my B rig or my fly rig, my go-to. My A rig, the main thing is, in Jerk, I had an endorsement with Ashdown. So I had the big ABN 900 head, and I had I had a 4x10, a 115, and I've still got I got rid of all that when the endorsement ended, but I've still got the 8x10. So I've got the Ashton 8x10, and then I've got this Tech 21, whose stuff I've been using for years. So Tech 21 VTB 1969 head, which the only other guy I know that used them was Gene Simmons. He had a couple of them, and he's been using them for years. Still uses them up until the last tour that they did. And there was one that National brought out to Australia, and the whole idea was they were going to bring them out and I was going to endorse it. They sent it down to me and I fell in love with it. And then they said that they weren't able to bring them out because the company wasn't going to keep making them because of the expense, because they're all made in the US. It was something like that anyway, I can't remember exactly, but they weren't bringing it out anymore, but I got to keep it. And it's just an amazing head. That's rack mounted, 300 watt, 2 channels, which are blendable. So you can set, it's almost like a biamp thing with one input. You can set one channel really fat and clean or whatever, and then you can set the top channel. The bottom channel I would set like an SVT, like a classic, and then the top channel I would set like a Marshall for the top end, and then blend them. And it's a sound that, like for me, I can't get it anywhere else. The closest I get is with the rig I've got that I've put together when I can't, because a lot of shows now, you know, you can't fly, you know, a 15 kilo head and a bloody 8x10, you know. And a lot of shows, if you're opening for people, you've got to get in and out. So loading an 8x10 and then lugging the big head and putting it on top. I do it when it makes sense, because I do love the feel of the big rig behind me. But I put together this fly rig, which is pretty much, I can walk into a gig with a pedalboard case and a bass case and I'm ready to go. Without sacrificing too much quality, you know. It still packs 300 watts and it's still got the front end sound of Tech 21, the Tech 21 gear, which I like the sound of, so.
You're running a Tech 21 preamp in that?
Yeah, what I've got is a VT DI and it's going into the Ashdown, and the Ashdown's pretty much just doing power amp work, 300 watts into the effects return. And then I've got an Origin Cali 76 compressor, which is a really, really great addition to the sound as well. Beyond that, there's just a little Rocktron Mini Hush, which I never have to use, but I've got it there because there've been times in the past where I've got to a venue and the power's dirty, and I've been glad to have it, but otherwise it's off unless I really need it. And there's a Line 6 G50 wireless unit out of sight underneath it, and I've got 3 of those. I've got a rack one in the other head, and I've got a spare one at home as well. It's old. It's like I've had all of it for 10 years, but it's never let me down. Really good gear.
Fantastic. What makes someone a great bass player?
Everybody's so different. For me, I guess it's playing for the song, remembering that the song is king. mean, everybody likes to show off a little. Everyone likes to put stuff in, and because it does feel good. But at the end of the day, it can't get in the way of melody, or it's got to support melody and vocals and stuff like that. So I guess it comes down to feel and knowing what to play, when to maybe lay out a little, or dynamics, when to pull back a little and when to hit harder. I guess it's all stuff that's just got to come from the player, that you've got to feel what you're playing for. I guess being excited about what you're doing too, because that lends itself to being a better player, I think. Even if being a better player means being a little haphazard and being a little, like I said earlier, colouring outside the lines, not being note perfect. There's a sort of feel and a... Let me put it this way. One of my favourite players is Chris Squire. When I was a kid, I heard Roundabout on the radio. Back in the days when radio would actually play something that's 9 minutes long, I heard Roundabout, and I didn't even know that was a bass guitar, that riff, And when I found out it was bass, I was like, man, I've got to find out more about this band. I've been listening to his raw tracks where they, on YouTube, you can just hear. He's such a revered bass player, and you hear how he's playing, and he's digging into those strings, he's bending notes, he's noise, there's scrapes, there's all this extraneous shit going on because he's got verve. And that comes through in the music, and that excited me as a kid when I heard that. There's an energy, it's not about being note perfect and controlled and careful. For me, and Geezer Butler, hearing Geezer Butler play live, and that guy is just phenomenal, smashing his bass and just, those kind of guys. And Gene Simmons, obviously for me, was a big, exciting player. Gets put down a lot as a bass player, but I think he's great. Great feel, great runs, So I guess, it's kind of just... really, really enjoying what you're doing that makes you a great bass player. I guess it's no different to what makes a great guitarist. If guys go off in widdly-diddly land all the time but then can't hold down a really feely rhythm, what do you got? Look at Keith Richards. It's brilliant. Ronnie Wood, those guys are brilliant. Yeah. Same thing, I think.
Australian bass players, any Aussies?
Oh, Australian? Well, yeah, like I said, for me, the guys, Laurie Marlowe, when I used to go and see Heaven, I was always... He had this stance, like this really tough guy stance, and he head down and he just used to pummel away at that bass, and he had such a great sound, It was one of the first guys I remember using an SVT and thinking, I love that guy's sound. And if he had a P bass or if he had a Hamer, he still had that sound, that grindy sound. So I always thought he was great. Steve Balby blew me away because I just used to, just think, Jesus, had with that Stingray, and he just played great. I don't want to leave anyone out that I know is great, but right now can't think of too many. Obviously, Blocks was great. Craig was always great because he had that P, and he had the P bass and the Ampeg SVT, and he had that really fat, grindy tone, which I've always loved. And he really attacked his bass too, which I liked. I've always loved guys that... I've always been more about pick players, obviously, because that's the people that influence me more. So hearing people grind it out always feels good to me, So I guess those guys would be my main local people that, your formative years, you see those guys and they stick with you.
Absolutely, yeah. What advice would you give to aspiring bass players?
Oh, listen to the whole band. Easy. Listen to the whole band. Listen to what everyone's doing. Learn to play with the drums and hear what the kick drum's doing, but then learn not to do that just because you think you have to. Because a lot of the best people don't do that. A lot of the, like actually if you listen to Yes, the drummer, like if you listen to Bill Bruford and Chris Squire, to me, I can't hear those guys locking in a lot of the time. I hear two guys really going off in different places, but somehow making it work because they're just such brilliant musicians. You know, they're both doing what they want to do, but they're not, you know, carefully locking in. And that's really exciting music. So learn how to do it, but then also learn how not to do it. Learn how to just go off and do some riffing and stuff if it works for the song, if it doesn't get in the way of, you know, you don't want to be soloing through a vocal, you know. But I think listen to everything. Listen to the guitars, listen to keyboards, listen to drums, listen to singing, and learn where your place is within that. Because you can be just as important as a voice. You don't have to be a support instrument all the time. You can still be up front, you know, and do what you do and be excited about it. So yeah, just listen to everything. Listen to songs and listen to, here we go, listen to, this was important, listen to everything. Don't listen to one kind of music and just go, I love metal, I'm not listening to anything else. You know, I guess I was spoiled as a kid because radio, you'd hear ABBA, you'd hear Queen, you'd hear Led Zeppelin, you'd hear Black Sabbath, you'd hear Leif Garrett, you'd hear everything. And I grew up loving everything. If I liked the song, I didn't care about who the artist was, didn't matter. Kids at school hated Leif Garrett. Oh, Leif Garrett, that's girly. No, the song's great, you know. I was made for dancing. Listen to the bass in that, you know. Everything's got something you can learn from. If you listen to Dancing Queen, that guy's a motherfucker, the bass player. That bass line is incredible.
It is, yeah. I
You
love
know?
that ABBA style.
Play that funky music. Yeah. Listen to the bass line in that. So listen to all types of music. Don't limit yourself.
Yeah. Did you ever have lessons?
Did I?
Have lessons?
No, never.
Self-taught?
No. I this is how it did. I borrowed my friend's Riviera jazz bass. I took it home and I put Love Is Like Oxygen on by The Sweet. The reason I did that was because I'd seen on the video that we had no tuners, right? I'd seen on the video that Andy Scott's hand was here, right? And then I thought, if I can work out where that is on the bass, luckily my mate had a keyboard. He was an organist, he played keyboards and he'd tuned the bass to that in E. So it was already in the right place, but I thought, if I can learn where that is, I can play along to the record. And I did that. Once I had that down, I put Kiss Alive on and I started, for the next 2 months, learning every song. You know, just hearing the riffs and learning them. And that was how I learned, playing along to records. 100 times, take the needle off, work it out, put the needle back on, go back, take the needle off, put it back on, you know, just, and you do that for like the next 5 years, you know. And then comes the day when you're going to go and jam with your first band and you've played sitting down and you buy a strap and you stand up and you go, oh my God, I can't play. It's a whole learn all over again, you know.
Yeah, that was Bloxy's one tip for everyone, was play standing up.
Oh yeah.
So Zipperney, what else is on your musical bucket list?
Musical bucket, I guess, look, I've been lucky enough to have done a lot and lived out a lot of dreams. And I think when I was a kid at school, borrowing that first bass, I've got to meet just about everybody that I had on my wall, you know, almost everybody. I've got Dave Hill from Slade, you know, people like that, people that were integral to me when I was a kid, Susie Quattro, Alice Cooper, Kiss, all of that. For me, I've got to do all that. I've got to make records. I got to be in pin-ups, you know. I got to sign autograph. I got done all that shit. It was fantastic. So I'm just happy that I've got to do it all. So I guess the only thing left is, what's important to me now is to keep writing, because I still really enjoy writing, and I do think that I'm writing some really good stuff now, if I do say so myself. Stuff that pleases me. I don't want to sound conceited and go, you know. It's more that I'm writing stuff that if I didn't think it was good, I wouldn't be doing it anymore. Going into singing has been fun, because it is one thing that does get me a bit on edge, because I always think, I know I'm not Ronnie James Dio, you know, or someone like that, but I'm going to make it work. you know. So that's good because it keeps me striving for more. So yeah, keep writing. I want to keep recording. I want to keep putting records out. I want to keep playing live as long as I can still stand up and hold a bass, you know. Just keep doing it. I enjoy it. I gave up a long time ago on the idea of this, you know, the mansion with the guitar-shaped swimming pool in Hollywood, you know. That stopped being important a long time ago. So it's good because now for the last, you know, 15 years I've been free of all that, and it's pretty much just been you do it because you want to do it, you know. So that's it. My musical bucket list, just to keep doing it. Keep doing it with people that I love too, which is what I've got now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing what comes next in the new Department of Gloom album.
Yeah, me too.
And thank you so much for joining us on the channel.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.